One of the stories many of us absorb, often without realizing it, is that our worth is measured by our ability to keep going, by consistency, by momentum, especially if we're creative, capable, used to holding a lot. But life rarely moves in neat lines. Sometimes it breaks open, sometimes it slows down without asking, sometimes it even asks us to turn inward, to listen before we give anything of ourselves again. This conversation is for anyone who has stopped and stepped back from the work they love because their body, nervous system, or heart needed attention first. My guest today is dancer, entrepreneur, speaker Lauren DeVera. She's a multi-hyphenate creative whose work explores movement, embodiment, and trust. She's also someone who knows what it means to pause, to step away during a season of profound change, grief, and depression. Together, we're talking about what happens when the anchors come back. The things that you once relied on no longer feel steady and you have to let go of it. The moments when your body can become a place of repair and reorientation. We also talk about elements of faith and what it means to walk with God and what it means to start believing in yourself again. The form of deconstruction that happens within you. Welcome. My name is Helen, and you're listening to Sincere Practice. So we're talking about mental health and like Filipino American mental health. And there's so many intersections to your identity. We have dance, we have entrepreneurship, we have disbelief, and then coming into belief. But when you talk a lot about Filipino American mental health, people don't always understand what that means.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
so from your lens, depression meant what? Like
Mm.
mental health healing meant what?
Yeah. From this lens,
Yeah.
I think the Filipino American experience is so unique. And oftentimes it gets clumped under like Asian American mental health, which I do see a lot of. Obviously, it's an umbrella and there's a lot of commonalities, but I think Filipino culture in particular, which I know a lot of Asian folks can relate to, is um just something that's been coming up for me is this indebtedness to our parents and
Mm,
like guilt tripping and like feeling a weight. But mental health, particularly in this case, is I think for our generation, we finally have language to describe what we're feeling, and we have language to depict particular emotions that perhaps, like for me, I have older siblings that are 15 and 19, 20 years older. They're my half
yeah.
siblings. And when I talk to them, sometimes I know I'm speaking a very, very different and unique language. Um, and I can relate to my nephews and nieces who are closer in age to me. Some of them are like 5, 6 years younger than me. They're closer to
Mm,
my age. But I think mental health as a Filipino it's like cracking open an entire world. I kind of imagine just like a pearl and like a shell opening up. Like there's so much more that meets the eye than what people think when they meet a Filipino. I think immediately people are gravitate towards our hospitable energy and how we like to dance and we like to sing and we have incredible food and like we are known to be hospitable, but behind closed doors, there's a cost to that.
mm. Crack us open and you'll see an entire world of unseen stories. What I love about you, Lauren, following you on Instagram, is that you don't hide from your identities. If people follow like at the Lauren DeVera on Instagram, but you talk openly about Lion's Den and your own healing journey, like with your body and even in your internal relationship with yourself. But like talking about the emotional trauma that you've gone through with your family, how does that manifest in your day-to-day life? Like what what sort of like traumas come up for you?
Yeah. I had this thought this morning of like, dang, like, am I like a really dark person? Which is, it's so funny because like growing up, right, I am still very outgoing, obviously extroverted, and I can be a bright light, but at the same time, right, I'm carrying a lot. And I think, we were talking about the depression, and I'm sure grief is going to be touched on as we continue to chat here today.
Your journey has taken like a really big spiral, right? You used to work in ministry. You started a business with a past partner, you ended that business, and then you started Lion's Den. You have a huge heart for faith, culture, and bodily healing. But underneath all of that, right, I'm a therapist. And underneath my therapy journey is also like layers of healing for myself. What sort of healing journey do you think you've gone on in the last like 5 years? Like, what is the undoing that's led to all of this fruit?
Gosh, I really love the way you frame things. The undoing, if we were to take this into like biblical numerology type things,
Please.
the 7 year thing is something that I really think about. And I saw this random reel on Instagram about like every 7 years, like someone's gonna go through like a spiritual awakening, if that's what it is. And they were like the ages from 35 to 42 are like
Dang.
pivotal. Yeah. And yes, I'm 37, but this year I turned 38. And she was saying in the reel that 38 is going to be like the true deconstruction. I'm like, oh my gosh, I really don't want to deconstruct anymore. And obviously, take things with a grain of salt. But I think this unraveling that's been happening, right? It's kind of, or another way to think of it is like the first crack in a vase. And so the first crack in my vase was over a year ago when this is the first time I'm publicly saying it, decided to end my 6 to 7 year relationship slash engagement. Uh, and you're trying to pick up the pieces and remember who you are not with a person. Like our, our bodies were connected, our nervous systems were connected, we lived together. And so I was kind of bound in so many various ways. So to untether myself from that, it wasn't a normal breakup, right? I think a normal breakup, maybe you're not living with that person, but when you live with that person, it's kind of traumatic because then you move out and then you have to find a place to live. And then you're like literally unpacking and packing, right? In the
Mm,
physical form and also in the emotional form and the spiritual form. And so it was like, wow, who is Lauren not in a relationship? What is she like? What does she believe? Um, and so it was a lot of questioning of a lot of things, even my faith as someone who's identified as a Christian my entire life. My faith was kind of uprooted as well
mm,
last year. Like the the legalism around Christianity too was something that I was thinking about and kind of grappling with. And the entire year last year, I felt a resistance in my faith. And even though I experienced that resistance, I kept bringing it before God. Like I kept bringing it to Him. I felt resistance with the Bible. I felt resistance watching sermons. I was like, I feel like this is all saying the same thing. Like there was a hardening that was happening in my heart.
mm,
And this is before I knew that I had depression, like officially being diagnosed. So then it was like, whoa, why does my faith, the very thing that's been a constant in my life, no longer feel safe? Why does dance no longer feel safe? There was also some ruptures that happened from me in the dance space. And it was like everything that was a home or an anchor was also being deconstructed. So it's like I didn't have that person to rely on anymore. I didn't have certain safety or comfort in the spaces that I express myself. And so it was a true reckoning and having to daily wake up and confront everything that I'm uncomfortable with and
mm,
to make it be known and not in a way of like, woe is me, right? And I talked about this on my own podcast. I had a episode around navigating depression and
mm,
grief and sharing with folks like there's a way that you can let people know how you're doing without spilling the tea and
mhm,
without rehashing the trauma all the time. And so I was able to like kind of land on a line of like, hey, I went through this. I'm all right. I'm not ready to unpack it right now, but this is just so you know why I'm entering the space this way. And it felt like, at the end of that breakup or the beginning of that breakup, the light in me extinguished. And I have a video recording of me. Um, no one knows this. This is the first time it's being shared.
exclusive.
We had an argument and I recorded myself sitting in the car crying as like, this needs to be your visual reminder that you are unhappy and
Mm,
you need to do something about it. And so, yeah, in a long-winded way, it was one crack that led to more cracks. And I thought the breakup was the hardest part. And I was just like, step one.
Lauren, you took me there. You took me there. I I love that analogy because sometimes we live in houses we've built, not knowing that the
Mm.
structure and the design itself makes us unhappy. And I was just reading through the book of Matthew, and there's this passage in there about how new wine can't be put into old wineskins, right? New wine has to be put into new wineskins. And with patience and with diligence, it becomes good over time. But we have to do away with putting new things into old, right? And one of my favorite songs that I'm like listening to in the new year is like New Wine. Jesus, make new wine out of me, you know? And I know what it's like to confront our shadows and how hard it is and how long and treacherous that is. And I just want to say thank you for being open and sharing that. Like what's gotten you through that?
I like the analogy that you shared there.
Mm.
This might sound cliche, but it's been a day by day journey.
Yeah.
And even this morning, right? Like yesterday, I experienced kind of a range of emotions. And
Mm,
there has to be an acceptance of that, right? I think there's a part of me that's longing for the version of me before depression. And it's like, depression's here and she can have a seat at the table. She can
mhm,
inform us what we need or what we're going through. And like, how amazing that I have the awareness of that, right? I think about people who don't even know that they're experiencing certain things, but
mhm,
awareness is only the first step. But how I get through it day by day is being open, is sharing with safe people,
mhm,
is using the things that are percolating in my mind, and I'm sure you totally relate to this as a podcaster, is the things that I experience on a daily basis can be transmuted into art, into
mhm,
topics that I journal about, into quote unquote content. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but there is a release and a cathartic experience when I share vocally
mhm,
what I'm going through. And now noting what I need in a given moment. So sometimes it's not always going to be journaling.
mhm.
So this morning I was like feeling a flurry of stuff and I was about to reach for the journal and I was like, no, I really don't want to like go deep right now. Like I might
That's
need to just,
so real.
like
Yeah.
consume something more positive. So I read a book that I'm reading right now that's about writing and creativity.
Mm,
And it inspired me and there was like a poem in there. And so what can I do to lift that energy up? And I am able to articulate this now. Like if you interviewed me a year ago, I would have been in shambles and I don't quite know what I would say. But now it's like getting the body moving, like doing a task or doing a chore, to just shake up the nervous system. Cause if it's happening in our head, right, it's happening in our body first. So
what I have so many questions for you, but the first thing that comes to mind for me is when you talk about relationship. I witnessed a lot of conflict in my childhood, so much conflict to the point where I was weary of dating. It was almost like I
yes.
kept everyone at an arm's length and an arm's distance. And so when I met my husband, it was almost like it was constant testing, 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 testing. It like sometimes when you have a blessing, it kind of feels like it kind of feels like I don't believe this. I don't believe the blessing of this, but I don't think I could have gotten there if I didn't go through the years of work it took to figure out who I was and my identity. So when you talk about the year of 7, right? I'm 29 now. 7 years ago was 22 years old. I was still living with my parents. I was in graduate school, and my parents told me I couldn't amount to anything because I was choosing a career that was opposite of what they wanted. And by the grace of God, like things have changed. But like when people around you don't facilitate the environment that allow you to walk in your calling, you have to be that for you, right? But in the last year for you, Lauren, like how have you worked through that grief? Right? Like, what has this grief taught you is more so what I want to know about yourself and what you need and where you want to go.
That's so good. I mean, I just want to say like that's incredible that you learned that in your 20s And I'm like almost a decade, right? Like almost a decade your senior to say it like that. But it's like,
Your life is beautiful, though. Like,
thank you.
we've both walked different paths.
Yes.
And I don't think just because I've quote unquote learned a lesson at an age doesn't disqualify your journey, right?
Mm,
So I just want to uplift you where you have such a gift to empower communities of people to just walk in their creative calling
mm,
and to like step into honesty and openness and realness. Cause I feel like that's happening so much in our day-to-day age right now. Like people looking at 18-year-olds and going like, look at that success of that person, but we're all on a different walk,
for sure.
right? Like, so I just want to say that.
No, thank you. I received
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I would be lying if I said I never feel like a hint of shame sometimes, like where
Mm,
I feel like I learned the lesson too late.
mm,
But then I think about some of my friends who are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s
yeah.
and are starting their life all over again. One of my sisters just went through a divorce. Like we went through a breakup around the same time, and she's 15 years older than me and was married for 20 years, and like her life started over again. And I think recognizing that our life happens in cycles, and so you
Mm,
may think you've arrived, and it's like,
no,
no,
none of
you
us
hit the
ever.
next level. You hit the next level, but there's going to be another challenge and another level. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that's so good. Thanks for your grace. In my goldfish brain, I also taught yoga today, and I literally in the middle of class was like, "What did we just do, guys?" And we were all laughing, and like they had to tell me. And then I was like, "I didn't have eggs this morning. That's why I cannot remember anything." So now I have pen and paper to jot down your questions.
It's all good.
What has grief taught me? So much. I think we see this a lot online too, but about how two things can coexist.
Mm,
That I can experience this grief while also being hopeful and joyful for what's to come. I do thank my grief for the wisdom that it's provided that I would have never gained without having walked through something so difficult such as this breakup and this like kind of upheaval of my life. Grief has also taught me to sit with it as well. I know I keep using this sitting analogy, but that grief changed me. Like this loss changed me. I'm definitely not the same person, and that doesn't take away from who I am. I think it's I don't maybe you might have language for it, but
mm,
it's given me more depth. It's given me more spaciousness and expansiveness to think differently about the world and to have more compassion for others that are walking through loss. Like
mm,
I thought I had compassion and empathy before. Now I have it on a totally different level. I have a totally different compassion and empathy for those walking through depression as someone who's experiencing it
mm.
in real time. And so, yeah, it's like, okay, it happened to me and it's
Yeah.
that's what it was. It happened. And now what do we do with it? How do we move forward? And I think another thing too is just recognizing that it's ongoing. Like, I
Mm.
don't think grief closes, right?
So true.
It just shows up in so many different ways, and it doesn't always have to be a big loss. Sometimes it's a mini loss, a small loss, but learning to be with it and to feel it is
Mm.
something that I always talk about with folks. So I try not to avoid it. And I think crying has been really helpful.
So good for you. It releases
Yeah.
cortisol. It's actually, yeah, it's an anti-aging thing too. If you hold it too much,
Mm,
that's probably why you look so good. Like,
honey,
you look good.
thank you.
Asian don't raisin, they say.
Thank you. Thank you. I love that. Yeah. Yeah.
I was, before we met, I was like praying about what our conversation would look like. And behind the scenes, there were so many twists and turns, right? But like, one of the things I really appreciate about you, Lauren, is like you keep going, even when things get really hard. And the passage in Luke that I'm going through the book of Luke. I usually do that every January because it talks about the gospel in detail.
Mm,
And there's a section in there about the Good Samaritan.
mhm.
The reason why I love Luke is like he puts in every intention that Jesus has. Like, why is this parable important? And this guy in his ego says, like, Jesus, you say to love your neighbor who is my neighbor. And he said the Good Samaritan went and had compassion on the man that was beaten, gave him 2 days' wages, took care of him, said, "Whatever more you need, I'll give it to you." Right?
Mm,
And
mm.
sometimes in seasons where I've been in darkness, it showed me to have compassion on my neighbor. And I'm curious about how that's transformed the quality of your relationships, going through grief and having compassion on people. I'm assuming that it's kind of softened your heart in ways that you couldn't imagine.
That's such a great observation and insight because it has. I think in the past, I would like take things personal if someone didn't reply back or
Mm,
like I just wish I had that wisdom in my 20s. Like I feel like I would have moved differently in my relationships and my friendships, but now having walked through this, I totally can fully respect someone who needs space or it takes their time replying back or even responds a certain way and not taking things so personal. As someone, I think we talked about this in a previous show about
yeah,
like being highly sensitive
yeah,
and what that means. And while this has feeling like I feel like I've walked many battles.
you have.
Yeah. And to some folks, it may be like, oh, it's really not that much, but it's like, it like it's inner turmoil is the best way to put it, right? Like when you're thinking about relationship with your parents or you're just thinking about the things that you might be insecure about or the fears that you have in life, like a lot of that if you think about it too much, it really can like suffocate you. I talk about this like if you spend too much time in analyzation or
Mm,
reflection, like it might not be helpful and fruitful. And so knowing when to
mm,
pause on that as well. But
yeah,
to bring it back to what you were saying is mindfulness is huge here too, like the ability to pause and see people for beyond that one interaction. Like what they're
yeah.
experiencing with you is just one, like it's 5% of the rest of who they are and everything else that they're dealing with. And so it's made me more generous in that way. So yeah.
Assuming the best in people.
Yeah.
Talk about the overanalyzation, because I feel like that's some of the things that I have to be careful about as a therapist of like, don't be so quick to overanalyze someone's situation that you don't leave room for the humanity
Mm,
of their experience, right?
mm,
So, like, how have you stopped yourself from overanalyzing other people's experience and even your own?
I try to make sure that I am moving from a place of curiosity and not self defense or trying to protect myself, which can be like a trauma response or like a
Yeah.
coping mechanism. We could go into so many topics, but like attachment theory, if we talk about
Hmm.
that, right? Like I typically probably identify as like anxious attachment. So I know when I'm starting to grip and I know when I'm starting to feel like afraid of like maybe abandonment or rejection or upsetting someone, which is surprising when I tell people that because they're like, "Oh, Lauren, you're so confident." I'm like, "Yeah, but both can coexist. I am
Yes.
confident, especially in my career, but
Yes.
interpersonally, like little Lauren's afraid of like losing someone."
Mm,
And so, yeah.
you're being so real. Like, I have to say, like, so for people who want to listen to your career overview of what you had to go through, moving to LA, getting injured, physical therapy and all of that it took to become a dancer, you can go on Yellow Chair Collective podcast. It'll be linked in the description down below. But like, this is a new avenue of you I haven't seen before, because the social version of you, the Instagram version of you is successful coach, dancer, but like, why are you being so open today? Like, what is it about this season that's like created space to be vulnerable interpersonally?
I don't know any other way to be, It's
Mm,
kind of yeah, I think well, for me at least, I bring all parts of myself into spaces.
mm,
And I think that you also cultivate a space and you ask really thoughtful questions that, right, can
thank you.
crack someone open, which is why, your podcast is so awesome.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I think th- for anyone that needs to hear this, like it's more exhausting to keep up a facade than to just be real.
Mm,
And you actually potentially could prevent yourself from creating long lasting connections by not truly revealing how you're doing.
mhm.
And so, yeah, I think talking about it is healing for me. Talking about it might be healing for someone else who maybe hasn't had language for what they're experiencing. I think sometimes we feel things, and then if you don't have language, how can you work through it?
Mm.
So, yeah.
Can I ask you something of like undoing and unlearning is something that we've kind of gone into. Like one of my biggest intentions with sincere practice is to cultivate the creative woman. Like my favorite phrase
Wow.
right now in the season is stop shrinking, start expanding, right? And one of the things I'm learning about myself is that for the sake of other people, I've shrunk my own dreams and desires for the sake of other people. And like it seems like you're on the other side of that. Like you're learning to stop shrinking yourself for the sake of a relationship or a dream of someone else. Tell me about that. Like, say more about that part.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is remaining, and I love that, cultivating the creative woman. Like, that's totally, totally down for that. I think I've always kind of taken up space, but then when I came out of that relationship, I was like, wow,
Mm,
I am fully aware of how I shrank in that relationship.
mm,
I'm wondering if that translated to how I showed up in public spaces,
mm,
but interpersonally and in romantic spaces, I have now learned that I need to name what I need and to do so with confidence and boldness. And it still shows up now. I recognize how I say sorry about certain things, or like I'm afraid to name certain things, and that's totally related to my past.
me
And
too.
yeah, and it's like, I want to feel confident and grounded and centered. So it's like recognizing that I'm carrying 37 years of experience with me at all times.
Mm,
So even though I've healed something or walked away from something, it still shows up in different ways. And the
mm,
best thing that I can do is to recognize it and then make a change that feels within reach.
mm,
And so it's just incremental small changes, not apologizing when I'm actually not sorry, not giving disclaimers when I don't need to, and speaking my mind. And also I've thought more deeply about how I say things, because sometimes I've realized I would say certain things that I would hear my mother say to, like,
mm,
my dad when they were together, or, like, I hate guilt tripping from my parents, but then I do that sometimes.
mm,
And now that I know that I do that, I'm like, "Ew, that's gross." Like, I don't wanna do that. So, continuously learning, but at an incremental pace, and then taking up space in the way of just, where am I today? Not a version of me from a year ago, right? Or like even the way that I'm approaching the Lion's Den and the podcast. Like I've asked God, like, all right, God, like you've revealed some things to me in the past year about the Lion's Den, about collaborations, about events that we do. What is it that you want me to do? Because I've been doing what I
mm,
want to do, but you're kind of showing me that that's not always the best thing to do. And so that's kind of how I'm approaching it, is a blank slate. I'm looking at
mm,
this year as a blank slate with no pressure to make more money. Obviously, I want to make enough money to feel like it's sustainable, but there's no pressure for me to be like, the six-figure coach, right? Like all like what social
mm.
media kind of tells
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
And growing things at a rate and a capacity that are in alignment and parallel to what I have capacity for personally, um, is what I'm thinking about.
You talked a lot in the beginning of the conversation about faith deconstruction, about the legalism that Christianity has taken up space for. And when you talk about giving God your business, what does that look like for you? Because I'm asking selfishly because I'm actually starting sincere practice. By the time this episode comes out in February, I'll have started sincere practice. And like I'd love to learn from you, Lauren, of like how has God shaped you and formed you in Lion's Den?
Yeah, well, congrats, Helen. That's
Thank you.
amazing. I'm so
Yeah,
excited for you.
thank you.
And now is like my time to give you your flowers. Like in the few interactions that we've had, I've been in awe of your sincerity. I had to use it.
You got
I'm so corny. But yeah, you have such a sincerity to the way that you show up. And I can't even imagine what that's like, for your clients. So
mm,
thank you for the work that you're doing. And I don't think I really have much to offer you because I feel like you're already doing it,
thank
you
you.
know? And I think for those that are listening, what I would share is making time for reflection, sitting in silence,
Mhm,
you know, even like looking out into the window and just not occupying your mind all the time, allowing space for downloads, right? And sometimes that happens when you're in the shower, when you're driving, right? When we're doing these idle activities where it's kind of like a subtle focus and just continuously bringing it before God. It's like being okay with the repetition. I don't think asking God for the same thing or repeating the same prayer means that things are not moving and things are not happening. I kind of view it as ritualistic. I find a lot
mm,
of comfort and healing and an embrace in repetition and in
mm,
in ritual. And it's like, the Bible,
yeah,
while it's the same words it's always been, you always find something new. And like when I think about pastors and having to preach a message every single week, in essence, they're all saying the same thing and the
mhm,
same message, but we need to hear it over and over and over and over again. And so I think something that helps a lot is really like tapping into new morning, new mercies, right? When we think about that
mm,
phrase is like, I was telling a girlfriend today, like, I don't want to bring in the stress from yesterday. I don't want to bring in some of those emotions into my morning. If I happen to experience it again, then it's a brand new experience. I think if we're constantly like just latching on the stress from the past few days or the stress from the week or the stress from the year, oh my God, then you're going to be carrying a year's worth of stress in a 24-hour period. Like that's not healthy. That's not sustainable.
mm.
So tapping into every breath is a new breath. Every breath is different. And same thing with every single morning when you wake up.
That's so I never heard it like that, Lauren. Every breath is a new breath. That's so true. Like, it's not the same one. No, but that's so true. It's like our bodies are so they're fragile, but they're also, like, beautifully designed, you know? And if we see life as an opportunity to start over again every single moment, like, nothing is the same. And as you were saying that, the thing that kept popping into my mind is, like, you're so different than the version of Lauren I met October 2024. Like, you're so different. Like, there's almost this heartbeat to you that feels like I don't know how to describe it, but when we first met, it was almost like I knew that your life was like a spark and a
Mm,
light, but meeting you, it's almost like it's like a
mm,
bonfire now, you know?
mhm,
And
mm. Thank
thank you
you.
for choosing healing. Thank you for like going after new deconstruction and
Mm.
like following God in that way. Like, where do you think he's leading you in your spiritual walk now? What is he teaching you now?
Yeah, thank you, Helen. So it's funny, right? We were talking offline, or maybe it
Yeah.
was here about. Well, I've had resistance in reading the Bible. I've had resistance. Well, last year I taught yoga during the time that church normally happens, so I wasn't really at church.
Mm,
I no longer have that class. So now I feel like, again, like a blank slate. And when the calendar turned January 1st, instantly I was like, read through the Bible again. So I've read the Bible front to back once in my lifetime.
that's so good. I'm
And
so
so
excited for you.
I'm like, I want to go through it a second time. And
Yeah.
it's going to take more than a year. Like I'm pretty sure it'd be dope if I could get it done in this year. Cause when I read it through the first time, it took me 5 years.
Mm,
So I think what he's inviting me to is just again, like that tool of curiosity, bringing that into my faith. Like I don't want to say I feel like a new believer, but there's something in me that feels like a beginner again in my
mm,
faith, which I actually think is a beautiful thing as I'm articulating that, right? If we approach all things as if we already know, like then you've already lost. And so,
so good.
yeah, it's like, all right, I'm going through the Bible recap, Bible plan right now, and there's something comforting about Tara Lee Cobb, I think is her name.
She's awesome.
Yeah, her YouTube videos, like I did
Yeah.
her 6 prep episodes, and
Yeah.
There was something that just felt very safe and warm in watching that, and I'm allowing myself to walk through this with no pressure to experience some quote unquote spiritual awakening. Like, no, God's been here. He's been doing his thing the whole time. It's just me, deciding to show up again.
Mm,
And I don't quite know. Like, I'm curious about the church space again. I think there's just so many different voices, right, that are talking about church culture and what it means to be Christian. And I'm trying to figure out what God wants me to do. And
so
if
good.
he is calling me to a church again, amazing, right? Like we had
Mhm.
talked about, like that was my last full-time job was in a church 10 years ago.
That's so
10
long
years
ago.
ago. Thank you.
Congratulations. You work for yourself. Like, that's so, like, it's so rare to meet someone that is a believer that's Filipino and like desires to walk with God. Like,
Mm.
I feel like it was such a divine encounter that Sujin was like, "Hey, Helen, there's this girl that's so cool that like is a dancer. I think you should interview her for your creative series at Yellow Chair." And now we've like stayed in touch. But it's so like I'm kind of in awe of the life that you've taken, you know?
Mm.
When you was that hard to leave, like your job in ministry?
Yes and no, because if you know about behind the scenes working at a church, there's a lot that goes down. So I I think it was kind of the right timing. I witnessed kind of a lot of different things on staff at that time
Mm,
and kind of was overworked. A lot of us were overworked and I didn't even realize it, right? Like
yeah.
I was 27, I think, when I was working there. Um
Was it hard to leave the concept of a job?
Oh, yes. Okay, I see where you're taking this.
Yeah,
Yes, so at the time, I was dating someone else, and Lauren's lived many lives.
she definitely has.
Yeah, and we, like, co-created a brick and mortar. I don't know if we've talked about this.
We
We
have,
may
yeah.
have. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I was excited for that, but it wasn't the first time me walking away from a full-time job to pursue something, right? The first time I walked away from a full-time job was in 2013 when I thought I was gonna move to LA, but I tore my ACL
Yeah,
instead.
yeah.
So, that was more traumatic. But 3 years later, right, 2016, leaving that full-time job, I was like, "Okay, let's do this," right? And I was still teaching at different studios and things like that, but, um, now where I'm at, I am a consultant for a nonprofit. Like, there's many different layers to the work that I do, and I'm remaining open to what God wants me to do. And I think the easiest entry point is to do the things that I'm lit up about, which is the podcast. I haven't released an episode on my own show since October 2025. And my next episode will be my 100th episode. Thank
Congratulations.
you.
That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. And then I want to write on Substack.
Yeah.
It was like actually a lot of people don't know this, but I wanted to step away from one of my email platforms because I have so many business expenses
Mhm.
and I just have a lot of expenses period since I've moved out, right? My
Mhm.
rent doubled, like living on my own is a totally different beast in the DC area.
Yeah.
As a creative entrepreneur, I've had to cut some like business costs and I was like, "You know what? I already have one version of an email marketing for the Lion's Den for the podcast. Let's move to Substack. It makes sense."
Mhm.
So, yeah, I'm excited. Excited.
Yeah. My Substack is still empty for now, but
Honey,
I'm trying.
mine was empty for 2 years. There's one post on my Substack and it says, "Coming soon, January 2nd, 2024."
What do you wanna write about?
I'm gonna I'm gonna partner with the podcast, but a lot of things that we talk about, the things that I think about. I think my 100th episode is gonna be talking about the refusal to rush and to reinvent. Yeah.
The refusal to rush and to reinvent. Say more
Yeah.
about that. What does that mean?
When you hit the top of a new year, right? Everyone is like, "New year, new me." And I think there's more content that's saying, forget that statement, which is great.
Mm,
I don't think I really need to reinvent who I am necessarily. I want to return to things that little Lauren loves and adores.
mm,
So that is reading and that is ballet classes. I took my first ballet class in for the year, like last week. And That was my first style of dance, but there's something so nostalgic about it. There's something meditative about it. There's something joyful about it, and it's super challenging. And so I get to hit all these things in a 90-minute class, and it's good for me. And so I've been reading, I've been coloring, scribbling in my journal, returning to these parts of myself that little Lauren, before things shaped who she was doing for fun.
Mm,
And then the refusal to rush means allowing myself to take my time. And I'm even going to put that in like practical terms, like my finances has taken a hit.
mhm,
So rebuilding that construction is going to take time,
mm.
and trying to trust in the timing of this. If I'm making forward movement, then I'm doing my part.
Yeah. It's almost like the book I'm reading right now is called The Power of Intention by Dr. Wayne Dyer. It's
Oh,
such a
yeah.
good book. I love Wayne. Like we're not always aligned in our faith, but like I just love the way that he thinks about life. He's like if we're constantly thinking about what will go wrong and what will happen eventually, we're thinking and meditating on the very anxiety we don't want.
Exactly.
And so I love the patience that you have with yourself. And that's something that I feel like I've been sitting with in my walk with God of like, how do I have enough patience to build something that I'll look back on and I'll be proud that I created? Because so often money can become an idol,
Yes.
whereas I'm trying to see money as a byproduct of really great work
Yes.
with folks, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You named it. You named it.
Yeah.
I was just having that thought today as I was sitting on the toilet.
Toilet thoughts. I have deep toilet thoughts too.
Right? I'm like, I should put a whiteboard in here.
You should. It works.
Yeah, I was just thinking about like my money problems, right? And like bills that were coming up and like, how are we going to do this? And I'm like, you know what? I'm actually not being productive having this narrative in my mind.
Mm,
So let me just set it down, not in a way of avoidance, although I will, be honest here. That is probably one of my traits is I have a tendency to avoid things that are hard or like overwhelming. I'll like kind of let it sit. But in that moment, I was just like, these thoughts don't prepare me for a good day. And I was about to, meet you here for this interview. I'm
mm,
like, I don't need to be thinking about money when I'm about to be talking to Helen. Like, there's a
mm.
time and place for everything. And how can I be present for what's on the calendar? So, yeah, just having, patience is like an active patience. And I think you touched on like, knowing that you're going to build something meaningful. And I think what I want to share with you in that is you already are. Like it's happening
Ooh.
right now,
Mm,
you know? Like
mm,
if you think about it, like we could die any moment. And I think there's still this subconscious thought that we'll know when we've made it, or we'll know when we've fulfilled our purpose, or we'll know when we like did quote unquote our calling. And it's like, no, it's active and it's alive and it's right now.
ooh, that is so good. Read 3 books at a time. That's something you have to know about me.
I
And
read
another
through
book.
8, so I feel you.
Okay, great. I'm not alone. There's this book called The Gift of Therapy by Dr. Irvin Yalom. He's like a kind of like a huge pillar in the therapeutic community. And if you want to know what good therapy looks like, I would recommend that book because I reread it every couple years.
Mm.
There's a section in there about facing human futility that usually when people are confronted with having to choose, they don't want to choose because they like the concept of having choice, right? If I don't have to choose, that means I have the abundance of choices. But the thing that you have to confront, he says, is assuming responsibility that ultimately you are responsible for the decisions you make. Human will and choice is evident in every human person.
Mm.
Number 2, you have to understand that we're not infinite, we're finite in this earth. And so because we know that, we only have a specific amount of time to make choices that are relevant to us. But in that indecision, he says this is where it gets complicated. In that indecision is the reign of your human heart.
Mm.
When we're confronted with choices that are difficult to decide, don't make a decision right away. Unearth what's beneath that and go, what is my mind functioning in? What am I thinking through? How am I thinking about this? And is
Mhm.
this right for my human flourishing? And it's like, it's so deep, but
I
he
love that.
talks about it as if he's teaching someone how to think, you
I
know?
love that.
It's so good. So it kind of goes into what you were saying of like, you're already doing it. You're already in it. But like, I love that shift that you just made for me of like, you're not eventually going to make it happen. You make it happen today, which
Mhm.
goes back to like your theme of presence,
Mm,
of like every single day is a new breath or every
mm,
moment is
mm,
a new breath.
mm. I love that. I love that.
Mm,
Um, yeah, I think it frees up the weight that a lot of us carry every single day
yeah.
to be doing the right thing or, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you don't have like a 9 to 5 structure, you're kind of like, what am I, if people are watching the video podcast, my arms are up like a robot, like, what am I doing? What am I
Yeah.
doing? And I have those moments too where I'm like, what am I doing and why am I doing it?
Mm,
Like, what are the spaces that I've said yes to? What are my weekly commitments? I said yes to doing a dance show in 2 months. And it's like, okay, you said yes. Why? What do
mm,
you want to do with it? How are you going to minister? How are you going to serve on that stage? And I think just coming back to that question coming back to the thought of like auditing what we're saying yes to. And I think that's something we
mm,
should be thinking about all the time, not just at the top of a year, but when we look at our calendar, does it reflect where I want to be and where I'm going? And if you don't know where you want to be and you don't know where you want to go, then my fallback on is like, well, what are you curious about? And can you just dabble? Just dabble a
mm,
little bit. No one's telling you to do it full fledged, but I think if you don't explore what you're interested in, you're always going to have that question. And I think when you feel lost, coming back to what interests me, what am I
yeah.
curious about? And then new things will emerge from there.
Yeah. When you talked about like figuring out what your yes is and making your yes sure, I was thinking to myself, like, I struggle with that too. And I wonder if it's being a Filipino woman, like you're taught to be hospitable, to kind of make everyone feel welcome and to not let people down, right? So a layer of my identity that I'm learning to figure out what's helpful and what's not helpful in that arena.
Mhm. Mhm.
Get conflicts with being an entrepreneur? Like the people pleasing hospitable part, what parts are helpful, what parts aren't?
Yeah, I think in entrepreneurship, right, they say your customer, your clients are your boss and like
Mm,
doing what they want and what they're asking for, which to a certain degree, yes. But if it's no longer in alignment with like who I am and what I'm trying to build, then something needs to change.
mm,
Either I give these clients to someone else
mm,
or we find folks that are more in alignment with where I'm going. And that's something that I've always thought about with the business is that the business needs to shift with where I'm going unless I expand and I like hire out or I pass it on to someone else.
mm,
So, in essence, to me, whatever it is that I desire, someone else out there is desiring it too. They
mm.
just might not know it. So
Yeah.
I think it falls on us to be able to educate folks and to inform folks like, here's what I'm desiring in my lifetime. Here's what I'm curious about. What about you? And
Mm,
oftentimes people just don't even know that that's an option,
mm,
right? So a lot of folks are still walking around with an idea of what life should be like and look like and these ordered steps and hitting these life milestones. And I'm very much not within that order. I'm very much, non-traditional, unconventional path. And that works for me. It's not going to work for everyone else. But I do want to invite people to really examine the decisions that they make on a daily basis when it comes to their career, when it comes to the activities that they involve themselves with. Is that something you actually want to do? Or is that because someone told you to do that a while ago and you forgot?
are we operating out of a tape that was
Yes.
already like downloaded
Mm-hmm.
50 plus years ago? That's
Yeah.
really good. Yeah. Or do you think you're still operating out of a tape or no? It's a hard question.
It's a great question. Am I operating from a tape? I don't think so because, that first crack of the vase that we were talking about
Mm,
led me to question everything. Everything. It was like a new version of me kind of emerged, but maybe it's not new, right? She's always been there. And now we're just kind of breaking the layers that have been piled on.
What did you have to question?
The things that I thought about Christianity, the things that I thought about faith,
Mm,
what I look for in a partner, what is healthy in a relationship, how I want to do business. Is this how I want to do business? All those things have come up for me. And while this can sound inspiring too, right? I always love to bring it back that, like, on the other side of that is the version of me that sometimes feels like I'm not doing enough. So,
mm,
yeah, an example is like my
so
dog,
good.
like I have an Australian Shepherd and I question, like, am I fit? Am I a good mom to, am I a dog mom that is equipped for an Australian Shepherd and what they need in their life? And so that's something I grapple with all the time is this like
Mm,
little inner guilt. And I think that that can be, an example for other people. Maybe it's not an Australian Shepherd. Maybe
mhm,
it's, you're a parent and you just never feel like you're doing enough for your family
mhm,
or, whatever the case may be. But I think learning to sit with that, right? Going back to the polarity that both can coexist, that I can be a good dog mom and also want more for him. And
mm.
how do we meet each other halfway?
Yeah. The thing that I'm deconstructing from what you were saying is like, to me, a good woman has to be free to be with her husband at all times. But in like starting this business, I haven't had as much time for my husband. And like he hasn't even brought it up. I've brought it up of like, I don't think I'm my best for you because I don't have time to cook or do XYZ, ABCD. And he says, like, you're not letting me down. Where do you get that belief that you were letting me down? And it was because my mom would like put us first, right? And I have to do away with the traditional. Have you heard of this like trend that's going around called trad wife and all of this like in the red pill community?
Tell me more.
Trad wife, traditional wife, like barefoot Contessa, always holding a baby, like
Yes.
her home is her kingdom. Like
Uh huh.
this entire thing. It's just like, it's not me. It's not
Mm-mm.
me. And
Yeah.
I feel like a part of me has subscribed to that narrative of like what a biblical woman should be.
Uh,
But like I go through Proverbs 31 and like she is a businesswoman, right? She gets food from afar. She like provides for her household. She uh, looks at a land, determines that she wants to buy it. She's an entrepreneur. And
mm-hmm.
so I'm just like, I'm learning to do away with that narrative, you
Yeah.
know? But like, what are you learning about what you need in a relationship?
Yeah. The first thing that I thought about was like letting go of like gender roles
Mm,
completely.
mm,
Completely. Right. I have a quote somewhere and I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull it up, but the quote was around like, if we desire to live up to the standard of like being what a woman is, we will constantly fail, something along those lines.
mm,
And I think I have to constantly confront that. Right. And the thing that comes up for me is we always think we're asking for too much. We always do. And it's like, where did that come from? Obviously, it came from somewhere. And I think that that's the thing that I'm constantly working through is asking for help is not too much. Asking for a
mm,
break is not too much. Asking for space is not too much. And what I want
mm,
to, when you share with me about you and your husband, it's like it's deeply conditioned for you to do these quote unquote domesticated things. And it's like, he can do them too. And in an ideal world, I would love to be the bread maker and like my husband stays at home. Like I would love to do that because I'm a builder. I want to go out there, be in the, do the thing that God's asked me to do. And so I think freeing yourself up from the belief that you're not doing enough and that
mm,
your gifts are being manifested in different ways. You're cooking, just not in the
mhm,
kitchen. You're cooking on this microphone. This is so corny,
mm,
but you're cooking in the service that you do for
mhm.
others. And when you do those things that you were called to do, you show up a better version of you in the home space. So I almost want to like challenge that thought that you're not the best version of you right now. No, it's more
Mm,
like you are in a season of building something new, and because you're lit up by what you do, I'm sure that that sunshine and that light transmutes into your home space and to your partner.
yeah. Like really deconstructing and trying to figure out what a good woman is,
Yeah.
right? That's so true. That's like a form of deconstruction that I'm currently going through right now of this fear. And I don't even think it was brought about by God. I think it was brought about by the views of patriarchy in the church of this is what a woman should
Mhm,
be. And
mhm,
most times it's like a white woman in a flowy dress trying to, I don't know, have like multiple kids. And it's just,
mhm,
yeah. That's you ever have that image of like who you're trying to please in your head, that person?
mhm.
I feel like I'm constantly fighting against that at all times. That's so real.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna, yeah, invite you to, whether it's kids, like actual kids that come from you, like I don't have
Mhm.
children, but like
Mhm.
I do have children out in the world. The students that I've taught, right?
Mm.
The people that I mentor, the
Mm.
people that look up to you and I, like we are mothering in so many different ways. And it doesn't have to look like what our parents thought, quote unquote, family or success or life needs to look like. And I love that for us. Like your
Mm.
generation, my generation, like our
Yeah.
generation, we're really confronting that and naming that and exploring new ways of what it means to live life, right? And the air
Mm.
quotes, and I'll just say it for those that don't see the video, when you were saying quote unquote good woman is, to me, a good woman is someone who is literally walking in their calling, is
Mm.
someone who is vulnerable and real, and that's all the things that you are, and
Thank you,
is
Lauren.
caring. Yeah, and it's not about these quote unquote domesticated things.
Mm.
Like
Mm.
man or woman, however you identify, we all got to eat, you all got to clean. Like this is not a gender role type thing. Yeah, I just want to free you, and obviously it's not going to happen in this moment, but to free you up from the pressure to do more. And
Mm.
maybe it's really pressuring you to do less.
That's so good. That's so good. I'm gonna clip this conversation and keep it saved on my desktop so that I don't forget.
I love.
Thanks, Lauren.
Yeah.
Lauren, I want to respect your time because I know that we've been talking for like almost 2 hours, but I just want to say thank you. Like I was going to say I feel indebted to you, but I don't think that's the right word. I think it's more so I feel inspired to walk in my calling in a different and more authentic way. And I know that it's not easy to come from a place of inspiration because like you said, it comes with a sacrifice and constant battling and questioning. So thank you for bringing all of you into this space. I appreciate you.
Yes. Thank you for holding space. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Your podcast is so dope, and I recommend everyone to listen to it. And it was such an honor to be in space with you. And I hope to meet you in person soon, which people don't know we haven't met in person.
Yeah, we will. We will meet in person.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.